Hey there, I just wanted to take a second to say thank you so much for watching this episode of The Shepherd Station. If you feel this has added some value to your life, it would mean so much to us if you would share this episode with someone else. It helps us so much when you do that. It would go a long way in supporting our mission to help men become better fathers, husbands, and leaders. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and give us a like. If you're listening to us through Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anywhere else you listen to podcasts, follow us, leave us a review, and let us know how we're doing. We want to hear from you. All right, that's all I've got. Now, let's get back to the episode.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Shepherd Station. We're coming at you from the Stockyard at 24 East Church Street, Headland, Alabama. We're on the square. Come by and see us. Great sandwiches, great soups, great salads, and coffee.
That's not the first time we've done that.
Grape salad. Maybe you're supposed to add grape salads here.
Those red grapes or green grapes?
We have grape salad with red and green grapes in it.
Oh,
People
yeah.
love it.
There you go.
It's great. It's a good side.
And they're great, too.
And they're great.
And they're great.
Absolutely. Everybody, I just jacked up that intro, but we're going to
Hey,
roll
that's good.
with it.
That's good stuff.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
that's great.
We're going to have one of our reels one day. We're going to have nothing but bloopers. So
Oh, yeah.
we'll have a whole lot of bloopers.
Yeah.
Anyway, with me today is Andy Hughes and Thomas Brown. As always, we're really happy to bring this to you today. You're going to have to listen to us today. We don't have anybody to interview, but we got a really good topic Andy came up with, and I think it's real important. And Andy, it's all you, man.
You know, when I was thinking about the topic that we could address for today, because we didn't have a guest, we got some guests lined up for the next several weeks, and but I kept thinking about a topic, and I kept praying about it, kept pondering about it, and this is the one thing that I couldn't get off my mind that we have not addressed yet, and that are we fit as men to serve? Are we fit? Now we talk about being fit. It could be physically fit, be mentally fit, emotionally fit, and most importantly, spiritually fit. But today I think we need to let's concentrate on the physically fit part.
Okay.
Are we physically fit to serve? Are we physically fit to serve ourselves, our families, our communities? Are we physically fit to represent God?
I think when you talk about are we physically fit or are we fit to serve, I think we need to define what it means to serve. Who are we serving? You know, obviously we need to be serving God Himself and ministering to people about Jesus. But who are we serving? Let's define service so we can better understand, are we fit to do that?
Right. I think the last person we need to serve is ourselves. Of course, as men, we should always, you get into some little idiosyncrasies, but most of the time we should always serve others first. There is a time to serve yourself. There's a time to do things for yourself. But I think our main focus should be serving God and serving others first, and then put ourselves there at the bottom of the list most of the time.
I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate. You know, we live in a society now where are you sure that's what we should be doing? You know, I've read it and seen it so many times. You can't take care of other people until you take care of yourself.
Right.
It's not that I agree with that. I don't agree with that.
Right.
But we live in a society where, you know, it's all about, you know, make yourself happy, do what makes you happy. So,
Well, and what you said is going to feed right into kind of what we're talking about today. To be able to serve others, you got to serve yourself first, and that is an aspect of it. But and that's part of being physically fit and being physically prepared. Also, you know, 40% of the people in this country are classified as obese.
Okay, that's what I was like. Are we talking about? We're talking about fitness.
just
Talking about
40%.
fitness.
Yeah, that's hard to believe. Of course, that's men and women. You know, but 40% of everybody in the United States is classified as obese. Okay,
40%.
Now, to
Listen,
be fair,
don't get me
Okay,
wrong.
what
We're not fat shaming anybody.
No,
No, but do you know the other, like, in comparison?
Yeah.
Like, do you know what that comparison is to other countries?
no, I don't. But you
I
know,
want to know that.
to be fair about that, also, I'm classified as obese
Oh.
with my height, weight. Really, I
With
mean,
your
I'm-
height and weight, but you,
Yeah, for my height and weight, I'm 6'3", you know, 265, 270 is, you know, I stay right in there somewhere. I'm classified as obese, which I think some of those standards, not just saying it because it's me, but
I was about to say, I don't
some
know
of those
about
height weight standards that are, you know, that American Medical Association or whoever comes up with, they don't take into account for, you know, how much muscle weighs and physical fitness and stuff like that.
do you know what 5'10"? I'm 5'10", 215. I weighed last night.
You trying to squeeze an inch in on me there?
Trying to squeeze. Yeah. I'm 5'10". We'll measure. So at 5'10", 215, that's the same thing. And I, during one of the wellness visits for, your insurance and everything, the lady looked at me and I just left the gym. Dude, I had just left the gym. It was a chest day. I felt good about myself.
You had a pump?
I had a pump going. And she sits there and she does also, well, you're going to be obese. I'm like, excuse me?
What? She just
I
looked
looked
at you.
I said, pardon me? She said, well, I see that you got muscle, but based on the
Your height weight
guideline
ratio
and all that stuff that they said, we're going to have to run the tapes on you because you're going to be classified as obese.
Right.
And my whole thing was, if my insurance goes up because you're classifying me as obese, but you know what my weight should be at 5'10" per their guidelines?
Yeah, probably about 150.
155, 160. Do you know what I would look like at 160?
Oh my gosh.
Like you just escaped Auschwitz.
Exactly.
Yeah, seriously.
I'd look really, really sick.
Yeah.
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 Wow. That's crazy. Because I'm 5'10".
How much do you weigh?
I weigh
Come on, put it out
220. I think last time I weighed myself, I was 220. But when I weighed 170, people started asking me if I was okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know, at 5'10", I was like, no, I'm fine. You know,
Yeah.
but yeah, you're gonna look totally like you're starving yourself.
Yeah, like I've been on meth for.
I'll tell you
3
what.
weeks.
In law enforcement, there's one thing that I've learned over the years too: is never underestimate your opponent. I've seen some skinny guys. I've seen some women, and whenever you got a hold of them, they were very, very strong.
Right.
And some of them were not on meth. They weren't under the influence of anything. Some of these guys that you see, matter of fact, right before I instituted a physical fitness program at the sheriff's office when I was sheriff, I was out working one night, and I'll tell this story on Crime Chronicles, the whole thing. But anyway, I got into a fight on the side of the road with a guy. He was 20 years younger than I was. He was a good bit smaller than I was, but he cut trees for a living every day. I'm talking about like a tree surgeon, not somebody out with a log skidder, hauling trees and that kind
A
of thing. but
physically demanding
a
job.
very physically demanding job. And I tell you what, it was a handful for me to handle this guy, especially trying not to really, hurt the guy.
And that's one of those
It
times
was a
when
handful.
you think, oh, I got this and I'm going
Yeah,
to be okay.
yeah. You cannot
And then
look
you
at
get
someone
surprised.
and determine their level of physical fitness
No.
or their strength sometimes. But as men, we need to be physically fit to be able to do things. There's things that you need to do around your house. Okay, there's things that you may do. Can you pick up a sack of fertilizer to put on your lawn? Can you take out the garbage? If you got to walk, my garbage is about 140 yards to the road to carry my garbage out. And if you got to carry some garbage out, other things that you might need to do around the house or at your job if you have a physically demanding job.
Right.
There's things that we need to do as men that we need to be physically fit and physically capable of doing.
Right. And
And
not
I think
just
it-
not
yeah.
just that, but being healthy into your old age, like in taking care of yourself when you're young so that you can actually do what you need to do, be able to get down on the ground with your grandbabies and things like that. I think about that a lot whenever I'm working out. Like, I've got children. I want to be able to play with them and not feel like I'm stiff and like running out of breath just getting on the ground,
As you get older, the stiffness gets worse.
It just takes a while to,
It takes a little.
Yeah.
to get
well,
going in the morning sometimes.
Yeah, but that I think that's all a part of that as well. To serve your children, your families to come, like generations to come, keeping yourself healthy is
Well,
important.
we've got so many people that live such a sedentary lifestyle, and technology has really been our worst enemy. And when I say technology, I'm not just talking about computers. I'm talking about machinery, and I'm talking about different machines in an industrial environment that have made work easier.
Right.
And it's made people be less in shape. They're fatter because they're not actually physically working during the day. And then these same people, if they're in a sedentary job and then they come home and they're sedentary at home, then what do you get?
With technology, though, that starts with our youth. And the reason I say that is when you and I were growing up, you're out of this one because you're way younger than we are. I'm just kidding.
I'm just here.
But when you and I were growing up, what did you do when you got up in the morning on Saturdays?
Yeah,
You watched a little bit of cartoons because it was Saturday morning cartoons.
right.
You ate your breakfast, and then you went out the door.
Yeah.
And you didn't come back until, you've heard the proverbial I'm not coming back until the
The
street
street
lights
lights
are
come on, yeah.
But that was true. You know,
Yeah.
you left, you were gone all day, you were playing with your friends, you were riding your bike, you were
Bicycle.
playing football, baseball, basketball. Didn't matter, you know, what you were doing.
Yeah.
But you were active.
Yeah.
But now you got, and I battle this with my son. He'll turn 8 here soon. I battle him with playing video games on the phone, watching the instant I want to watch this on YouTube or whatever video game platform there is, and it keeps kids inside the house. Mm-hmm. We have to literally push him to go outside. So it starts with the youth, and it's getting worse and worse nowadays. Because I don't see kids, you used to ride around and you would see kids ride on their bike all over the place, kicking the ball around,
Walking in groups.
yeah, whatever. You don't see that anymore.
Yeah. Well, for a long time, I rode my bicycle to school back when we had neighborhood schools before all these great ideas come up, all these educators to make all these changes in education. But we had neighborhood schools, and I either rode my bike or I walked to school.
Uphill in the snow?
Both ways.
Barefoot at that. all right.
Barefoot,
Yeah.
man.
We didn't have a whole lot of snow down here, but it was that was physical activity, and the thing about it is, I don't know about PE in schools now, but I mean in PE class, we actually had to change. You had
Yeah, 'cause
to
you
have a
had
pair of shorts, and you had
we
you'd
did too.
You'd get a 0 for that day if you didn't have a pair
Yeah,
of shorts
we did.
and a shirt to change into,
Yeah.
and you either had to run a mile on the track, or you had to you're doing push-ups, you're doing something
Right.
playing basketball.
You were required to act.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll give my perspective growing up because you guys were older than me, and we had to do all those things too. We had to change in the locker room and stuff like that, which we're in Southern Alabama, so they're still going to hold to some of those ideals, I think, versus moving up north. But even now, like it's totally different probably than that in some areas. You don't probably anyway. But we didn't have to run track. I don't think we got out. We would change and everything, go to PE, and then we would do like these just exercises, I guess, like sit ups. Your normal calisthenics kind of stuff. Not like.
Yeah.
Real. I mean, we had to run a mile, I think, for like physical fit, like the what was it? The
president's physical fitness.
Yeah, physical fitness
award
thing, or you had to
yeah.
do pull ups,
Yeah.
And I remember going back to what we were talking about just a second ago. You'd think that these kids that had that were big, they were going to do all these pull ups, but usually it was the scrawny, these kids you wouldn't think
hard
of
to pull up all that weight.
and usually they were the ones that were like the farmers and stuff, like the ones that their family like
Worked.
put them outside and they were workers, yeah.
Throwing hay
but you
bales
would never
around.
know, you'd never know it looking at them, But they would get up there and they just do everything like it was nothing,
Yeah.
And you're sitting over here like, all right, what am I doing with my life?
Rethink my life choices.
Yeah, exactly.
As a man, though, we've got to think, do you have the strength and the physical ability to perform certain tasks? Could you rescue your wife or your children?
That's a good question.
If they were trapped in a vehicle,
You know what?
trapped in a burning house.
I've thought about a lot. You always see those people like on TV that fall off a cliff and they're hanging there and they pull themselves up and they just get back up,
Yeah.
That's really hard to do.
That's tough.
That's actually really, really hard to do.
When you weigh 265, 270.
Like I didn't realize, like, in every single adventure movie or combat or whatever, you always see somebody do something like that.
Yeah.
And there was one time I had to do something similar to that. And I was like, you know what? I'd probably die. I probably wouldn't make it. I'd fall off the cliff.
Adrenaline can fuel a lot of stuff.
That's true. That's true.
It can.
Yeah.
Yeah. What you watch in the movies is not necessarily what it would be like.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
You don't have a lift pushing you up, making it look easy.
Yeah.
Could you rescue your wife or your child?
Right.
Do you have the physical ability to defend your family against an aggressor? Do you have the ability to defend yourself against an aggressor?
Yeah.
And that not only speaks of strength or endurance, but it also skill. Also, do you have skills? There's a lot of people, and in law enforcement these days, we're seeing a lot of people that fighting has been so discouraged in schools now. And it's always a zero tolerance policy. You know, they tell kids today you can't even defend yourself. If you defend yourself, you're just as guilty as the aggressor, and both of you are going to be suspended. You know, no matter who started the fight or who threw the first lick or whatever the case may be. But we used to have fights at recess. Okay,
Yeah, you had. I mean,
you had fights at recess.
Andy
you had
is a
fights at-
proponent for.
yeah, boys. Let me tell you something.
Yeah,
I'll say this right
yeah.
now. Boys need to fight.
They need to
Boys
be boys.
need
Yeah,
to
I agree with that
address
100%.
physical aggression. They need to experience physical aggression because
Mm-hmm.
we've got cops and soldiers out there now that are going into the military and going to law enforcement. They've never been in a schoolyard fight at recess,
Yeah.
much less a fight over their gun in,
There
in a
is
dark
something.
alley
There
somewhere.
is totally something to that like young men need to test themselves
Exactly.
against each other.
There you go.
And so they can know what they're capable of.
Hey, and if it's in a controlled environment, that's fine. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
if you could sign your kids up. You know, my kids took karate.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't finish out years and years of karate. They did other things, but
Yeah.
they did take karate. They were involved in a physical sport.
Yeah.
Get involved in some type of karate, jujitsu,
Mm-hmm.
taekwondo, MMA stuff, something. With your kids, they need to experience that physical aggression. Excuse me, I got my tongue tied there. They need to experience physical aggression because that is the real world.
Yeah.
That is what's going on out here. And the first time they get punched in the nose doesn't need to be when their life is actually on the line. You need to experience that beforehand. You need to know what it feels like.
Yeah.
What was it that Mike Tyson said? All right, so
Everybody's got a plan till they get punched in the nose.
face.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, but there's truth in that statement because what he's talking about is 100% accurate. I'm not promoting, violence, going out and being a bully. I'm not promoting that at all. But men in today's society, they're getting weak. I mean, they are. And you don't know how you're going to handle something until you're put into that position.
Yeah.
And he's right. The last thing that I want is to know how I'm going to handle, am I about to die? Is my family about to die? I don't want to be testing that at that point.
Yeah.
I want to test it prior to that.
Yeah,
And as
right.
men, we need to do that. As little boys, they need to do that. They need to know their limitations. They need to know, all right, this is how I can deal with
What
this
am I
situation.
capable
What
of?
am I capable
Yeah.
of? And it's, maybe it sounds, like a lot of machismo, but, sometimes you just got to sit there and test yourself. As a man, you've got to
Yeah.
know that you're capable to do that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, confidence. I mean, and having those physical confrontations either at recess at school or either in a dojo somewhere
Yeah.
or in some type of controlled environment, then those situations breed confidence. Okay? If you've got confidence in your abilities to perform, then you're going to do a lot better. And the thing about it is a lot of people equate violence with anger. But I think maybe it was Sun Tzu that said this, that the best fighters are never angry.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah.
So, and you don't,
Do you know who Sun Tzu is?
The Art of War.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
I read that
Thomas.
book. I
All
read
right,
that
I
book.
like
All
it.
right. There you go.
Very good.
but, like I said, the first time you get punched in the nose doesn't need to be in a life or death situation. You need to experience that beforehand to know how you need to know what it feels like. You need
Yeah.
to know how you're going to react to that.
Right. And men are built differently too. I think that, when you fight with another guy, and you're upset about something or you guys disagree on something, you fight. After the fight,
Yeah.
you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're upset, and
Yeah,
then
most
after
of the
that,
times.
after you guys duke it out a little bit, you're totally best friends again.
So you're saying women are different?
I think they are a little bit in that sense. Maybe they won't get into a fist fight with each
Right,
other, but
yeah.
they definitely hold on to things a lot longer than men do. Like
you
I
guys
think.
are really crossing a boundary.
Well, I mean, I think
opening
it's
up a
a
door.
stereotype for sure, but I think that I've always grown up, and even women have told me that that like their kids. Their boys will get into a fight, and then they're best friends 10 minutes later.
Yeah.
But the girls, when they fight, I mean, they
yeah.
fight.
They hold grudges.
Women
Yeah.
and men are they're wired different.
Yeah, exactly.
They really are. They do hold.
And I think
grudges.
it's because men, it's that testing of each other. It's like, all right, we've done this, we figured it out. Now we know a little bit more about ourselves, and we're going to move on.
Yeah. Well, as men, I've heard a lot of guys say they don't work out, they don't train, they don't shoot, They don't do any of that kind of stuff. They say, well, if somebody messes with me, I'm just going to go crazy and I'll whip them,
That'll happen for
that
about 20
kind of
seconds.
thing,
That
But-
reminds me of there's like a movie or something where the kid's like, if you just get naked, they won't touch you. Or something like that. Like it was like that kind of crazy.
What
like,
kind of movies do you watch?
Yeah.
No. It was like some, like Goonies type movie or whatever, where it's like his friend giving him advice or something.
Again, everybody out there watching or listening, we are not advocating that you just get butt naked in a fight. Okay? We're not doing that.
But I mean, like something like that. Like I'm just going to go crazy.
Well, craziness and being uncontrolled during a violent encounter is not going to get you anywhere, okay, except killed or hurt pretty bad.
Yeah.
You need to always be under control. You need to always be able to control your emotions. That's why it's important, like I said, get punched in the nose before it happens out on the street. That way you can experience that.
As well as I do, though,
Yeah.
being able to control yourself comes from testing yourself so you know how to control yourself.
Yeah.
And the physical fit aspect of that, whether it's physical or not, I say physical, you have to be physically fit because that plays on your mental side too. Mm-hmm. I mean, it really does. If you feel like you're okay, I'm fine. I don't go to the gym all the time, but I'm relatively healthy. How many fights have you been in, Andy? You remember?
Me?
Yeah,
I don't
you
know.
can't count them, can
I
you?
don't know.
I can't count how many fights I've been. But 30 seconds into that fight, what are you?
Yeah,
worn
you're
out.
tired.
You are tired. If
30
it's a-
seconds is a long time to fight.
in a fight,
Really
you
is.
are worn out. So unless you're taking care of yourself, 30 seconds into that fight, what starts playing? I mean, you may be the big, strong guy that can, bench press 500 pounds. But if you're not training and physically taking care of yourself on every aspect that you can, 30 seconds into that fight, you start getting gassed.
Yeah.
Your mind starts going first.
There's a lot of fat. There's a lot of fat boys that can bench 500. You know what I'm saying?
But they can't
But that endurance.
last more than
endurance.
20 seconds. If
Right.
you can,
Well, and there's something about that like, because I've been going to the gym a lot more than I ever have, more consistently than I ever have in the past 2 months. And I started realizing something about myself is you start to hit a wall that you're not sure if you can go past. When you're testing yourself that way, you start to hit a wall and you're like, okay, I've never been to this point of exhaustion before, or like of just windedness or sweating or feeling this way. Am I able to go past this? And then when you do, it's like, whoa, I didn't know I was capable of that. And it's the same thing. Like when you're in a tussle or whatever, you're in a fight with somebody, it's like, you're not sure what you're going to be capable of. And then you get up to that point and you break through that even. It's like, whoa, okay, I can actually do more. And if you don't do that, if you don't test yourself in that way, you're going to think you're capable of way less than you actually are, and you're not gonna produce what you can
So
actually
if you
can.
relate that to an everyday life situation, I've never dealt with this. I've never been this far, and you can relate that back to what you did. Well, let me push past it and see how far.
Oh,
I
yeah,
can go. It
yeah.
does. It builds confidence, which on a mental level, it helps with your mental fitness as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I totally am. Like there are times like now where I'm doing something and I feel a little winded, and I'm like, "You're fine. Like this is nothing compared to what you usually do." I'm not even at the point that I'm.
Well,
usually
your mental game is really about 90%
Yeah.
of it all anyway. And like they say, your mind can take you places that your body didn't know you could go.
right.
Okay, the mind, if you train the mind, and I'm by no means a master of this at all, but if you can train the mind to be stronger than the body.
Well, the body is fragile. We've seen that. I've seen it here recently with myself. The body's fragile, but it's a lot tougher than we think it is. And listen, I've had many failures in my life, and looking back on them, if I'd have just sat there and said, if I'd have been a little tougher mentally, I would have made it through that. And I can see where I would have.
Yeah, your body can withstand way much more than
Your
you think it
mind
can.
will
Right.
give up way quicker than
It's
your
like
body
when
will.
the point you think you're dying,
You're
you
not
can
dying.
go beyond that.
That's right.
I had somebody tell me at the gym yesterday. They said, "Don't worry, you'll pass out before you die." Yeah. I was like, "Oh, okay, good to know. Great to know, man."
You'll get a little rest.
Yeah, it's like,
but
you'll be all right.
I know Eric is familiar with Pat McNamara, and I don't know if you are or not, Thomas. But Pat, a lot of people just call him Pat Mac. But Pat McNamara, he's a former Army Delta guy, and he's retired. I think Pat's 59. I follow him on social media. He's got several different little things he does. He does this thing once a week. It's like this is was it regular dude stuff or is it
basic dude
dude
stuff.
stuff?
Basic
and he does
okay.
all this stuff. You know, he's like so and so is basic dude stuff. You know, and that kind of thing.
okay.
Changing a
Pretty cool.
tire.
Yeah,
Basic
you-
dude stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You need to check him out.
The
anyway,
basics
Thomas.
of being a guy.
Yeah.
You know, he's
But-
got. Have you watched his stuff with the? I think he calls it his driveway gym.
Oh yeah, as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
his driveway gym. He's 59, but guy's in great shape. He's actually even had some type of I don't remember what it's called, but some type of autoimmune disease, and it really got him down physically. And he talks about it. He talks about how he's had to mentally just say screw it. I'm working out anyway. It's more about discipline than it is about motivation. You know, you can lose motivation, but if you discipline yourself to do something, you know,
that's
you
good.
say, at this time every single day, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do
Yeah.
some kind of physical fitness.
Right.
And no matter what you're doing at that point every day, then you say, okay, today, now it's time for my workout. But he's got a driveway gym. He's got a whole lot of different things. A lot of the stuff he does is really applicable to older guys too.
Oh, okay.
Because
Well, it's functional muscle.
It's functional
too.
fitness.
Yeah, functional fitness.
You know, but really need to check him out. But Pat says there's 4 reasons to exercise. Number 1 is self-preservation and longevity. You're going to
that's
live
good.
longer. You're
Yeah.
you're healthier. You're going to live longer.
Yeah.
Number 2, the ability to save your own life. That's definitely
Yeah, like what I was talking about,
goes-
falling
goes-
off the cliff and you
Yeah,
can pull
there you
yourself
go.
up.
goes back to self-preservation too.
Yeah, yeah.
That's another reason. The third reason, and like he says, even more importantly, is the ability to save someone else's life.
Right.
Think about it, especially if it's one of our family members, one of our loved ones. But I mean, do you guys think? I mean, I know how I feel about this way. I'm sure Eric feels this way. A lot of civilians may not feel this way, and even being retired law enforcement, am I compelled to jump in and save somebody else's life in a situation?
Our oath never.
Oh
expires.
yeah, I mean, I don't feel like your oath
So,
ever expires. I mean, I'm going to react.
Right.
I'm going into a situation, but like Pat says, you know,
I want to expound on that.
Go ahead.
But I want you to get number 4 first,
Yeah.
and then I want to expound and go back to that.
number 3, the ability to save someone else's life. Number 4, the ability to kick somebody's butt if you have to. That's what he says. That's not
Yeah.
exactly how he says it on his
Yeah.
on his thing, but anyway, the ability to kick somebody's butt if you have to. If
Yes.
somebody pushes you to that point, if you have to defend yourself or somebody else.
I also have a thought about that. It's kind of like if you look fit, that's repulsive in a sense to people, right? Like I
Well,
think somebody's going to size you up and say, "Can I take this guy?"
Is repulsive the right term?
Well,
I don't know. That's probably not the right term.
That's a
Intimidating.
There you go. That's the
Well,
word. Yeah, that's what I'm
actually
thinking.
in law enforcement. I mean, that's what we would call that's the lowest level of force.
Yeah, there you
is
go.
your appearance, your
Yeah.
actual presence.
Okay.
And you know, I've known people say, "Well, why didn't you try this cop?"
No,
well,
but yeah.
he looked squared away. His boots were shined. All of his stuff was right. He looked like he was physically fit. So I decided, you know, I'm going to try him with that. There's going to be some people. It doesn't matter if you know there's some 6'8", 350-pound cop. They're going to try him no
Yeah.
matter what. It's just
I had a
some
friend
crazy-
in high
But as a
school.
general rule.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But
My
as a
best
general-
friend in high school, Maury Wilson, we'd be out somewhere and he would always look at me and he'd find like the biggest dude and he'd be like, "You gonna try him?" I was like, "No. Why do you always call out? Like you find like the most ridiculous sized person. He'd be like, "You can try him?" I'm like, "No."
He's trying to get you to test yourself.
Yeah. He'd be like, "Hey, how do you size up against that guy? What do you think?" I was like, I don't know.
Well, going back to what number 3 was, your ability to save somebody else. What are we as men? What are men traditionally?
Protectors.
Maybe not in this society nowadays,
No.
but traditionally, especially in the biblical sense, as what a man's role is. What are we? We're providers. We're protectors. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
And in order to do that, nowadays we have it. Well, I've got to carry a gun, and I am a firm believer that if you are a husband, a father, or just a man in general, even I'm not saying women should not. I think everybody should exercise their Second Amendment right, carry a firearm. We live in an unstable society where you need to be able to defend yourself, but in carrying that firearm, what comes with that responsibility? Huge amount of responsibility. I don't know that I could live with myself. I'll use an example here. We're sitting on the square in Headland, and we're looking out the front window. You guys can't see it, but we're looking out the front window, and you got this beautiful picture of the square down in Headland. There's events out here all the time. Harvest Day, all the different Under the Oaks, you name it, car shows, they're always having events out here, and the square will get packed. You know this. You've probably been at some of them. You know this. You could insert that scenario anywhere, and something happens. Some guy pulls a gun, or some guy grabs a hold of his wife and just starts, wailing on this. Whatever the case is, I don't know that I could stand by. I couldn't live with myself if I just stood by and didn't do anything. Mm-hmm. So having said that, I think that as men, we're talking about being fit to serve in every aspect, kind of getting away from the physical fit part of that, but it will play into it. If I have in the back of my mind, all right, I take care of myself, I train, I shoot regularly, I train my tactics, because I still do that even though I'm not as active as I used to be. I know that I'm capable to deal with that scenario if it happens. So we're looking at, all right, am I fit to do that? Men need to ask this question, man. You're going to step out in society where all this is taking place and you're not ready, willing, and able to defend your life, your family's life, or the life of somebody you don't even know.
Right.
I question that.
Yeah.
Strongly. Yeah,
that's kind of in my whole characteristics of what a man should be as a protector. But you've got to be physically fit, and you've got to be mentally prepared to do that.
Yeah, that's true. So what does it take to be mentally prepared, mentally fit?
Well, if you're going to be in a dangerous situation, and this applies to law enforcement, military, hugely, but to just to everyday life, though, are you mentally prepared to die? Okay?
You kind of bound into the spiritual side of things.
Well, exactly. That's where I'm headed to. That's where I'm headed to right now, because
naturally,
it's like y'all have heard me say this before. I don't want to die, but I ain't scared to neither. Okay?
Yeah.
Because I know where I'm going.
Yeah.
John Lovell, former Army Ranger. I heard John say he was over in Afghanistan fighting, and he said, "Hey, I'm over here in a fight with the Taliban. If I die, I win because I go to heaven. If I live, I win because I go back home to my family.
Right.
Either way, I win." But he was sure of his salvation, and if we can be sure of our salvation and what will happen to us the second that we draw our last breath, I think it makes it a lot easier to be mentally prepared to make that decision to go into any battle as a man.
It does.
And that is the crux of it all, I feel like all of it. Like, why do you need to be physically fit? Well, if God calls you into something you're not prepared for,
right,
physically, you don't know where God's going to call you.
No.
And now he will qualify you for whatever you're about to do. He doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called, right?
Right.
But in that, if God's like, hey, you're going to go, I don't know, just something that's physically taxing. You're going to do something physically taxing. It'd be better to just be ready to do that than it would to say, all right, I got to spend 6 months in the gym getting ready for this, I think even there's a reason that even fasting, people are now like pushing that as a health thing, that like intermittent fasting thing, where it was just normal in the Bible.
Right.
It was what they did.
Yeah.
I'm going to give
the Spartans did the same thing.
I'm going to give a nod to my sister. My sister's a dietitian. She's been a pharmaceutical rep for a long time. You just mentioned intermittent fasting.
Yeah. If
we got her on here, she would blast
you. She wouldn't like that.
She would blast you big time.
Yeah.
Man. Hey, Emily, how are you?
Hey, Emily is a great supporter of the show.
Yeah, Emily is a great supporter of the show.
And I would love to hear that. I mean, maybe there's something to that.
She actually does have a lot of really good nutritional tips.
I don't think intermittent fasting maybe is something you should do all the time.
No.
But I think it does have its place. I've done it before and I lost some weight and
right.
How'd you feel?
Added some muscle and that kind of stuff. I felt fine.
Right?
At the time I was doing it, I wasn't eating breakfast till say 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
somewhere along in there, and that was after I worked out.
But even more so, fasting, I think historically has been more mental than it is supposed to be about the physical. Yeah. It's getting rid of something. It's disciplining your mind so that you can do the hard things. That's the hardest thing we probably would ever have to do, which is deny ourselves of something that is a need.
Right. Well, in society today, everybody's used to working an hour, taking a break, working another couple hours, take an hour lunch break and go to the local buffet and that kind of thing, and fill your gut up and
That's
everything,
the
and then go back to work a
worst
couple hours,
thing.
take another break, and then you're off work, and then you're going to go home and you're going to sit on your butt and all. But
Yeah.
back in time, people, they may have eaten in the morning,
Right.
but then they worked.
Mm-hmm.
They worked throughout the day, okay, and then they ate some supper at night.
One of the worst things that we
Didn't waste a whole lot of time
as
eating
society,
and snacking.
One of the worst things in society over here, and I say, well, man, is the all you can eat buffet.
Yeah.
That is, dude, I have watched people.
Scourge.
Some guys want to pull up a chair, and they sit up there like they're at a grazing trough.
Well,
I mean,
it's something that has always bothered me.
I've been guilty.
Something that's always bothered me in the church system is these pastors that are morbidly obese, that you could tell look like they're about to have a heart attack any minute.
yeah.
But they're standing up there preaching hellfire and brimstone and completely
Isn't gluttony a sin?
it's
is.
completely just skipping over gluttony.
Yeah.
Let's talk about all the other things that don't pertain to my own have to change.
Right.
And it's like that's a huge part of being a servant of God is being good stewards of our bodies.
Well, in 1 Corinthians, it says, your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit that resides in you. It says, glorify God in your body. And going back to being physically fit, physical fitness should never be about vanity. Now, I'm not saying anything bad about bodybuilders, okay, and people that do bodybuilding and compete in bodybuilding shows, that kind of thing. That was just never my thing. I just want to be strong.
He wanted to lift houses.
I wanted to be bigger and stronger.
Eric has some stories about working out with Andy.
was my thing, But physical fitness should never be about vanity. It should be about functionality.
Why did we have to work out at 2:00 in the morning? By the way,
Because it didn't have a work yet in that day. I didn't get one in that day, so
hey,
The only time.
What are you doing? I'm on the highway. What you need? Let's go to the gym. It's 2:00 in the morning, Andy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Sergeant.
So, but our bodies are a temple. God, we're created in His image, and I think He expects us to take care of our bodies and to be physically fit. What's the most basic form of physical fitness?
Running,
Walking.
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 Yeah, running.
Okay.
What does a kid do?
Walk,
They
run.
play with their little toys and stuff like that, but they crawl,
Yeah.
and then they walk. There are people out there with infirmities that can't walk, but most of us,
Yeah.
can you walk?
Right.
Okay. Do you walk?
A lot of
Do you
people
walk
can-
to the mailbox and back? Do you walk? I've seen some people. I see people out here, and I'm not talking about some 88-year-old grandmother or something, really, but I've seen people out here that it's 50 yards from their house to their mailbox, and they're riding a golf cart to the mailbox and back. Okay, that's just lazy. I'm just going to tell you that's just you're just lazy. Sorry, if you don't have a physical infirmity and you got to ride a golf cart to the mailbox to pick up your mail,
Yeah.
then
Now, if you got a long driveway, I could
you're
I
not doing
get
it.
it.
It's even better if you got a long driveway.
Yeah.
Run then,
It's
run.
even better to
Take
to
a jog.
Walk,
Yeah,
walk
yeah.
out, but get out and do something.
Right.
And you can do something whether it's 5, 10, 15 minutes a day. People say they don't have time. You can get in a little bit of a workout in 5 minutes if you do the right thing. You can do some calisthenics in 5 minutes
Yeah.
nonstop, and you can have some degree of physical fitness.
Right.
We all think that. Well, I say we. People have it in their head that if you're going to become physically fit, you have to go to a facility. You have to go to a training area. You have to go to a gym. You got to have all this fancy, expensive equipment. and weights they can get it pretty pricey.
Mm-hmm.
A guy brought this out years ago. We ran every day in the academy, every stinking day.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Man, people have it wrong. Push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, run. That will keep you in shape. You don't have to have anything fancy,
No.
and you don't have to do it for hours and hours and hours all day long. You can take time, set aside discipline you're talking about. Set aside that time. At this time, I'm going to walk a mile, and you do that every day.
Yeah.
Right before I walk that mile, I'm going to do 100 push-ups. All right, so I get my push-ups in, and then I get my walk in. I've got my cardio in. I've got my strength. Set you up a bar at the house. Do your pull-ups, do your sit-ups.
Yeah.
You're talking 30 minutes a day.
Right.
Yeah. Set yourself a goal. A lot of times, if I'm not going to work out that day, or if I'm, in a hotel room somewhere or whatever, I'll set a goal. Say, I'm going to do 500 body weight squats today.
Yeah.
Okay. Go do 25. A little while later, get up and do 25. A little while later, do 25 more. Push-ups the same way. Set you a goal. It doesn't matter if it's 100 or 200
By the end of the day, I'm
500.
400 push-ups.
Yeah, exactly. Just say, this is my goal today. And don't quit until you reach that goal before you go to bed that night. I'm going to tell you a story about a friend of mine. I know you wouldn't mind me telling you this. He's a really humble guy. A friend of mine named Steve McGavin. Steve was in the Marine Corps. He was a real cop. Worked for the CIA, and later went to work for the FBI. He was deputy commander of the hostage rescue team for 10 years up at Quantico. Me and Steve got to be good friends several years ago. He just recently retired as the security director for Southern Nuclear for all 3 nuclear plants there. Well, Steve, several years ago, he called me one day and he said, man, I've got stage 4 esophageal cancer.
Oh, wow.
Guy never smoked, never dipped, never chewed, none of that kind of stuff. Well, when he's in the Marine Corps and everybody sees these commercials, he was at Camp Lejeune when this toxic water, at Camp Lejeune. He said, I'd gotten a letter. He said, but I didn't think much of it. Got to where he couldn't swallow one day. Went to the doctor. I said, you got stage 4 esophageal cancer. They gave him, he went to several doctors. They ended up, sending him out to MD Anderson because it was such a bad case. They told him he had an 8% chance of living.
Wow.
So he goes to MD Anderson out there, and I believe I got this correct, but they did 6 weeks of radiation. They sent him home for like 6 weeks. They sent him back to do 6 weeks of chemo, and then sent him home for 6 weeks. And after that was over with, they went back and did a surgery. They split him all the way up his back. They went in from the back.
Gosh.
And, went up the back and took out his esophagus, basically, and everything, and moved his stomach up and all. But Steve, he had just finished his chemo, 6 weeks of chemo, and he still had the chemo port in him.
Wow.
He ran 6 miles on his 66th birthday
Wow.
with a chemo port still in him.
Holy cow.
And this guy, Steve's 70, he just turned 73 back in October.
But he only had an 8% chance of living.
Yeah.
Wow.
He just turned 73 back in October. He's retired from Southern Nuclear now. But he just retired the first this year. But dude is a physical stud.
Yeah, that's incredible.
5 a.m. in the mornings, he still works out. He started playing golf. And I was kidding with him. I was like, hey, he'd never played golf before, and I've never played golf either. But I said, listen, don't get soft, playing golf. And he said, no. He said, I walk the golf course. I carry my clubs, and I walk the whole course. And that's after he gets up and works out at 5 a.m. in the morning, though. He's 73 years old. But he has developed, he's developed the discipline and a habit of physical fitness throughout his life that is carried over into his 70s. And I guarantee you, if you saw him, you would never think he was a day over about maybe 55, 60 years old.
Wow.
Maybe. And I talked to one of the guys up at HRT one day, and he was there when McGavin was there, and he said, Steve McGavin's one of those guys, we're not going to beat him at anything. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But
Probably what he said about cancer. You're not going to beat me.
Yeah. Just what a testament.
That is, man. That's
but if
amazing.
he didn't have that level of fitness,
they told him that.
If he didn't have that level of fitness, that level of discipline and drive,
Right.
Well, that level,
So-
right. His level of fitness directly contributed to his recovery.
Right. That
From
8%
stage 4.
statistic is probably about the average person
Yeah.
that wouldn't do that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
But you put it on that kind of person, it's probably a lot higher. It's like you have an 80% chance of living if you act that way, or something like
Yeah.
that.
And that goes back, and of course he didn't have any symptoms, until a certain time. And then by the time he went, he had stage 4 cancer. But another thing is, as far as our physicality as a man, you need to go have regular checkups. When I turned 40, I started having a regular checkup every single year. I'd go to the doctor, draw my blood work, check me out, do the EKG, all that kind of stuff and everything. Also, once a year, I go see my urologist, which is somewhat uncomfortable.
yeah, it is.
But I would encourage every man to go do it. Go do it. Being physically fit and working out is only one part of the equation. The other part of the equation is taking the responsibility for looking out after your health, what you eat, what medicines you take. Try not to take any medicine. I don't like to take medicine.
Right,
If I
right.
can avoid it,
Going back
can.
to my sister with the whole pharmaceutical thing,
Yeah.
she is a pharmaceutical rep, and I'm not trying to get her in trouble with it. She'll tell you right now, man, the meds that people are taking out there,
Yeah, it's crazy.
it's ridiculous. They're causing more problems than,
Well, look at if you'll pay attention to the advertising on your television, it'll tell you who's got the most money.
yeah.
How many? About every other commercial you see is a pharmaceutical commercial. If you got this, talk to your doctor about this.
Take this. Of course, it's going to cause
medicine.
these side
Yeah, the
effects. Now
side
you're going to have to
effects.
take this over here.
Yeah.
Just
Side
it's
effects.
a chain reaction.
Could be death.
Yeah, exactly. But it's part of taking care of ourselves. I would encourage every man to go get, especially at a certain age. If you got some risk factors, you need to go before that. But like I said, at 40, I started going every single year, getting my blood work drawn, getting everything checked out and all. And it just and going to the urologist. You get your prostate checked. Like I said, it's uncomfortable. But prostate cancer is like one of the most curable forms of cancer.
Is it?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Interesting
if they
fact
detected early.
about prostate cancer. The doctor I go to, we stay on top of all that stuff too. But he'll tell you, every man will get prostate cancer
At some
if
point
he
in their
lives
life.
long enough.
Right, yeah.
Really?
That's exactly what he says. That every man will get prostate cancer if he lives long enough at some point in his life.
Right.
Andy's right though. My grandfather got prostate cancer, cured it like that.
Yeah.
So
It's
what is
incredibly
the-
curable. It's easily cured
Every man will get it.
if he lives long enough.
What is the
Factor.
cause?
I
Yeah.
don't know, just
We're all doing the same thing, apparently.
Part of it is keeping your prostate healthy. And there's all this
Science.
See your urologist about that.
Okay, got it. Yes.
But,
don't take Eric's advice.
yeah, don't take
See
my
a
advice.
doctor.
See a doctor.
We are not doctors. We do not.
We do not advocate.
Disclaimer.
that. No, we're not doctors. I think let's go to what this all says, though. What you're saying, the body is the temple. You got to take care of the temple. The temple needs to be able to serve. When you are taking care of yourself, you're being physically fit. You're taking the time to discipline not only your mind but your body. Are we not glorifying God through that?
Yes.
I mean, can we not look at it that way?
He gave us these bodies. We were created in His image, and I think He expects us to take care of our bodies.
I mean, I know that I painted mine and kind of, colored it a little bit. I do like to take care of myself and, try to stay
Yeah.
in shape.
Well, and I think there's
Different
a,
topic for a different day, folks.
Yeah, okay.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think this is probably going to get some pushback, but I do think that's a different thing to me. You're not harming your body to where you can't perform, the things that God has called you to do, so I understand, but
I don't
even
know
in
if I
that
wanna do this or
scripture,
not. I want to, but I don't know if I want to do this or not.
I
Go
know,
ahead.
I know. I don't want
No, there's something
to
that
go there, but
you might have met him too. I think he was out there when you were out there when we were working at Sear. I ran into this, and we're really getting off into a different tunnel here. He worked with us. He was an evangelist, but he was also ex-military, and he kind of worked out there as a contractor. Well, not kind of, but he worked out there as a contractor. We're on the range one day, and I had just gotten a new tattoo, part of this one done. He said, "Man, I like that. That's cool. Look at mine." And he pulls his shirt up, as far as his shoulder. He's got this big, and it was a religious tattoo as well. And I said, "Wait a minute, aren't you a preacher?" He said, "What's that matter?" At the time, I'm like, I really don't know how to respond to that.
Yeah.
I was like, preachers didn't get tattoos. I wasn't living the way I was supposed to. He looked at me and said, "And I really don't know if I want to do this because I've battled with this many times. But this, I'm just telling you what the guy said."
yeah,
Okay.
this is just a statement.
And the guy says, "Son, Jesus was tattooed." And I stepped back and I was like, I'm waiting for the lightning to hit. You're being sacrilegious here. You're a Christian, preacher. He said, "No." And I don't have you probably have it. It's in Revelations.
Yeah, so Jesus was tattooed. That's not necessarily true, but Jesus will be
On his thigh.
on his thigh. Yeah.
And see, that's what he said. He said, when he comes back in all his glory, he's wearing a banner that says King of Kings, and written on his thigh is Lord of Lords. He said,
Right.
Jesus is tattooed. I went,
Well,
oh,
yeah.
I never thought of it that
Well,
way.
in our word tattoo, we don't know what that will look like,
yeah.
you know, or
Right,
if
right,
he took an ink,
Listen, I am
ink
not
to
being
his leg or whatever.
sacrilegious. I am not being sacrilegious. I'm just telling you what was told to me.
No,
So,
yeah, and I think that but the case for marking your body, right? We're talking about physical, being fit.
Yeah, let's get back on that.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, marking your body as far as tattoos go, don't hinder your ability to be fit.
Right.
They just they adorn your body with certain images, and that's
And that may hinder your witness as a
your
Christian.
witness.
could.
That's
Yeah, it could.
different.
If you have certain markings on your
Yeah,
body.
exactly. Like what you said, you were like, wait, you're a pastor.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
that
and it did. I mean, it's a good
makes
example.
makes you sort of think, or even for those that don't think that is a sin to do that, which if anything, it's a disputable matter, like Paul talks about. You would be hindering their conscience, in that.
You could
if
also
were-
take those things, like say maybe you got some stuff on you that you didn't need to get on there.
Right.
It can hinder your witnessing to people,
Right.
but it can also give a good testimony as well.
Yeah. Okay.
You can kind of turn that if you want
Yeah.
to.
Yes.
I know we got way off the subject there.
Yeah.
Going back to physical fitness. You're right. I don't think the tattoos do that. But yeah, I mean, your body being a temple. And
Right.
you want to take care of that temple because that temple needs to be able to serve God. That's what the temple's for. It's to serve God. That's what we're for.
Right.
We're to worship. We're to serve. So in essence, if we're taking care of ourselves, I said it before, if we're being physically fit, if we're doing what we need to do to be men and serve and protect and provide, we are glorifying God in that process.
Right. And I would encourage men that if you're not taking care of your bodies, if you're not working out, if you're not in some form of physical shape whatsoever, that you take the initiative to get in shape for your, for God to glorify Him. Number two, for yourself. Sometimes more importantly, for your family. Do you want to be here a long time? Do you want to have longevity? Do you want to be healthy and fit way into your 70s, like my friend Steve is?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to be that? Who wants to be broken down at 60, 70 years old, where you're not even able to function or go for a walk or do anything in your retirement years?
It's called quality of life.
Yeah, I mean, I always want. I always joke about it. So I just always want to be that old dude. Nobody's quite sure they want to mess with him. Like that guy looks like he looks like he's probably 70, but he looks like he might be in pretty decent shape still, or something like that.
Right, right.
But I would encourage you, check out Pat McNamara. I mean, he's got a system called Combat Strength Training. Check it out. It's some pretty simple stuff that he does, some pretty simple concepts and all. If you really want to get motivated, there's a guy named Chad Wright. Chad Wright. He is a devout Christian. He's a former Navy SEAL. He's got one heck of a story about how he got rejected to start with to be in the SEAL teams. He went and had heart surgery to take a cyst out of his heart, a surgery that had never been done before, so he could go back and actually be a SEAL.
Oh, my gosh.
But he's got a heck of a story. But he's got a podcast called the 3 of 7 podcast. It's him and his brother and a friend of his, and he's got some other people. He does he works out, but he does ultra marathons and stuff too. But Chad, man, he's got a beard down to about right here, and his hair's long.
If you listen to this guy and you don't get motivated, then there is something wrong.
Oh, he will,
Really?
and he will shame you too.
Oh,
I mean,
yes,
he
sir.
tells it
Really?
just like it is. He said one of his favorite. He's about like Donald Harden. He won't say anything ugly.
Yeah.
He'd say "dadgone" or something like that.
John Brown.
Chad will say, get off your dadgone butt,
Dadgone.
do something, this that, and the other. But he's a very highly motivational guy. He's a good Christian guy. He's got some good podcasts. He's got some good little shorts on YouTube called Truck Talk,
Oh yeah.
and just some real stuff. He's
I want to ask you guys a question from a citizen side. You talked about earlier being mentally prepared, being like doing jujitsu, doing that kind of stuff, tactics, strategy, knowing kind of what you're going to get into before you get into it. Maybe what are some things practically that, because you said earlier, like you don't have to go to the gym to get fit.
right.
Right.
Do you have to go to like a jiu-jitsu place or
Yes.
like these places to
Yes.
get prepared to fight?
I'll go ahead and answer that.
It's good. It's good to do that.
It's good to do that. Now, I've been fortunate, and this is not me going, okay, look at me. I was in martial arts for a long time. I have a black belt in Taekwondo, karate. I was fortunate to be able to study Muay Thai with a title-holding professional fighter from Thailand
Wow.
for about 6 months. That dude was phenomenal. I've been able to study jujitsu, but it's always been in a, what's the word I'm looking for, a formal setting.
Okay.
Okay. You can't get the level of training without that. You have to have that.
So what about those guys that just can't afford to go do something like that, but they want to know how to
You know what?
defend their
Here's
themselves
the thing.
and their
Here's the thing. Okay, yeah, you can't afford it. Some of that stuff is expensive. You can find a way. If you want to do that, you can find a way.
Sometimes the question is, can you afford not to?
Right.
That's
That's
true.
a good question. Like, okay, with the Muay Thai guy that I was talking about, this guy held 2 titles. I mean, he was American, but he was stationed over in Thailand for about 10 years, and he was the only guy that was, sorry, I'm having a little word issue here. The only guy that was American that was accepted into that traditional Muay Thai school.
Oh, wow.
And in that, there were certain things he had to do. He was disciplined enough to do all that and became one of them. This dude was phenomenal. He held 2 titles in Thailand as an American. That's kind of,
Yeah.
that speaks for itself.
Yeah.
Those Muay Thai guys from Thailand, it's a different level than what you see over here. These guys are like little pieces of iron that just beat each other to death.
Now, Muay Thai, is that the all elbows and knees stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I didn't know where I was going. Anyway, I was fortunate enough to meet this guy, and through some of the stuff that we were doing, I was doing, we kind of interchanged. Yeah, I'll train you, and okay, yeah, I'll do this. There's ways you can do it.
Right. If you've got a skill set, you could probably trade somebody.
Yeah, there you go. Don't let money be a factor of, and I know it's hard to say that, but if you want to do it, you can do it.
Yeah. And these people will. Like I've traded people in corporate settings
yeah.
that they're totally willing. Just because they have a large company doesn't mean that they're not willing to do something.
Well,
like that.
figure out how much you're spending on cigarettes a month, or chewing tobacco, or Twinkies.
Yeah.
you know,
Monster
or-
energy
yeah.
drinks.
you know,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Figure out how much you're spending a month there, and see if you can
cut that
contribute
out.
$30-$40 a month to either getting in a gym or learning
Adjust
a
your
martial
budget.
art
Yeah.
or whatever the case may be. Look at the money that just look. Okay, how many people's got Netflix? Okay, how much? I don't know because I don't have Netflix. But how much does Netflix cost a month?
I don't know anymore.
How
I
much?
don't.
How much do these streaming services cost?
Yeah,
a
probably
month?
like $20.
$15 to $20.
All right, look at how much free stuff is out there that you could be consuming. If you want to look at YouTube and stuff like that, that's fine. There's a lot of stuff out there to look at. Cut out those streaming services.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know.
Go do some jujitsu.
Yeah.
Muay Thai.
Yeah, something.
Get
Something like that.
get your kids involved in doing
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
At least get your kids involved in some sports.
Right.
I mean, I know every kid's not an athlete. Okay, every kid's not an athlete. I was not much of an athlete in high school. I developed a little bit later, and got my size and everything else. But expose them to physicality, to hard stuff. I'll tell you one thing that I've done that I enjoy doing is rucking.
That's
Rucking.
easy.
I
That's
bet-
not
it's
easy.
walking.
It's walking.
It's walking
It
basically.
doesn't.
Put a pack on your back.
Okay.
Okay, start out with just 10% of your body weight. Okay, if you weigh 200, that's 20 pounds. Put 20 pounds in a backpack on your back and go walk a couple miles. Ramp it up, 2 more miles. Put
20 more pounds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
add a little extra weight. Extra weight. Now, I used to do 75, 80 pounds, and for 3 or 4 miles. And as I've gotten older, I've my pack's like it's 45 pounds now.
Okay.
Okay, but whenever you did the test, whenever we
Yeah.
went to work at the SEER school out there, and that's when I got started rucking. Actually, is before I went to work at SEER school, part of the test to go to work out there was you had to do a 3-mile ruck with a 40-pound pack in 45 minutes or less. So
I never forget when I did mine. This dude was in his 60s, and he was one of the Vietnam era special forces guys.
Oh, man.
He was in his 60s. He beat everybody.
Oh,
Yeah,
I bet. Yeah.
He beat everybody.
yeah, there was an SF guy there when I did mine, and whenever I was about halfway to the turnaround point, and he was going,
He was
halfway back.
Smiling as he passes you.
Yeah, I mean, he was really running, but you don't have to run. You don't
Yeah.
want. But
well, you can go.
just
You can go
walk.
like hike if you've got to do something like say like you've got lots of kids or something and you can't just up and leave them for a certain amount of time to go. It's a great thing to do with your kids. Take your kids and go hiking.
Okay,
You know,
think about
that's
what
something.
think about what Andy's saying. Going back to what we're talking about today. Andy's talking about walking. I'm sorry, rucking with a 45-pound pack. That's pretty average. You got a bunch of kids.
Put your kids on your back.
Well, it's not even that. Let's say that you're going hiking with your kids. You're up in the hills.
Yeah.
Something happens. Somebody gets hurt.
Oh, yeah.
Now who's got to take care?
You got to carry that
You
kid.
got to carry that kid.
And you're going to carry that kid. I mean,
promise you, you're going to carry that kid.
Yeah.
If you're a father and
That's
you're going
your-
to take care of
that's
your
your
kid,
job.
you're going to carry that kid.
But if
down.
you're in good physical condition, it makes it that much easier.
That's right.
there, you go.
Yep. Absolutely. You've already carried that 45-pound rucksack.
You know, you're setting yourself up for success. Physical fitness sets you up for success in anything that you're involved in.
That's right.
Anything.
Yeah.
Use it from the standpoint that you and I've been. All right, so we'll talk about a tactical operation. Erica says I talk about that too much, but that's what I relate things to.
Yeah.
Because in a tactical operation, you're dealing with something that's super high stress. Okay. Let's see if you remember this. Years ago, it was Applebee's. There was supposedly a robbery, and the guys put the employees in the walk-in freezer.
Right.
Turned out it wasn't quite that way.
Yeah.
So as we get there, the ERT, or the emergency response team, gets put in place. And that's a small element that if something really goes bad, they can breach, make entry, and hopefully save the day. Probably going to be ugly, but it's just
But they're
what
gonna do what they gotta do.
You know, while the rest of the team is getting
Putting
in
together
place,
a plan.
putting together a plan.
Gotcha.
doing an
These are the
assault.
guys that are just brute force. Just get it taken
For the
care of.
most
have
part,
to.
yeah.
Yeah. I gotcha.
So on ERT, your gun's up a good portion of the time. You're waiting for that, and that's taxing, man.
And it may be 90 degrees and you're wearing 40 pounds of tactical gear.
Yeah, that doesn't breathe.
You know?
So, your physical fitness level. That's why when you go test for all these teams, you have to be at a certain level, because not only does that allow you to perform the functions or that you have to do, but it helps you mentally.
Okay. So I got another question. Then this might open up a can of worms that you guys don't want to get into. But,
Open it.
I've seen so many cops, and me and my buddies, we've always talked about it. How
I
is
know where
that
he's going.
person
Chase somebody down.
going to
right?
chase somebody down? How is that person going to do what is
They're not.
necessary? Well, what are the regulations? Like, is there not any kind of like?
That's departmental. It depends on the department.
Really?
Depends on the department,
Well, it's also state too.
the state after you go to the academy, the state has
But that's my point.
qual.
Not every state's like that.
Because the
no,
military, you got to do
Yearly.
Yeah.
like a
whenever
PTO, right?
Whenever I was sheriff, I come up with a PT test.
PT.
Yeah, for everybody. And we did the PT test twice a year, and you never knew when it was coming.
There you go.
That was the thing about it is, a lot of times the Army, they do one maybe twice a year. They say, okay, in April and October, I know I got my PT test. So a month out, it's like, better start running, so I can.
Well,
make
either
sure I
way,
can fit
that's
my
better
time.
than
Yeah.
people just getting
But we did it
out of
twice a
shape.
year, and you never knew when it was coming. You might call the shift lieutenant and say, you have these 8 deputies at Westgate Park Monday morning at 8 o'clock for their PT test. Okay, that encouraged everybody to be physically fit year round. Provided a weight room for them, provided time during their shift to work out, provided some stuff out at the farm center that we had sandbags. They had a little more, some higher level stuff out there, that was
Basically,
CrossFit, strongman, powerlifting kind of stuff.
There's no excuse for anybody.
There's
to not.
no excuse whatsoever. And even I had a guy that I sent to the Cooper Institute out in Dallas, Texas, which is the gold standard for fitness. Sent a guy out there and said, "Hey, we got somebody here that will help you put together a physical fitness plan
Wow.
and a diet."
Who's that?
Wow.
Mike Stacy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sent him out to the Cooper Institute to do that.
And he did.
Yeah, yeah. So we had somebody there that there was no excuse for you not to be in some sort of physical condition.
Yeah.
You see some law enforcement agencies, man, they just they don't have any
smaller,
requirements.
your smaller agencies are not going to be able to do that as much because it's a manpower and staffing
Yeah.
issue.
Oh,
Your
okay.
larger agencies, 9 times out of 10, they're going to have that because they do understand that the need for the physical fitness aspect. I think on a state level, though, and if anybody's listening with APOST, I think maybe you guys need to implement this. I think that to be able to hold on to your certificate yearly, I think you should have to pass a PT test.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to me. Well, and like you said, smaller departments, and I guess this would be like a smaller type of department. But like back in the day, when we were in high school, we'd go to the mall a lot. You see these security officers that were just, completely obese.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could tell if they needed to run after me, I would get away, and I'm not even fast, you know. And you see that, and you're like, man, somebody could just come in here and do whatever they wanted to do. If that's what's going to be standing in the way,
Right.
you know. And that's kind of that, like what we're going back to. Like it's crazy to me that you can be in that position and think that you don't have to be physically fit.
Ultimately, it boils down to personal pride. How do you want to look? What capabilities do you want to have physically? You know, do you want to be able to perform? It all boils down to, especially outside of a structured environment such as a military unit, where, and even in the higher level military units, you get into SEAL Team 6, Dev Group, or Army Delta, or Air Force, you know, combat controllers and all them. They don't push group PT. If you want to stay there, then you got to do it on your own. You got to be self-disciplined to maintain your level of physical fitness that it takes to stay in a high-level unit.
That's part of you proving to them that you're able to function with them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You got to remain at a high level. You know, it's a high level of shooting, a high level of building entry, a high level of medical, you know, care, all that kind of stuff. You got to maintain that high level.
Yeah.
It all boils down to personal. You know, are you personally willing to do it?
Right.
Do you have that personal pride in yourself?
We talked about it a little while ago to answer your question too. You know, you said you guys size cops up all the time.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, as soon as you
I'm
get
not
out
even
of
a
the
bad.
car,
Well, I'll say bad person. I'm not done bad things
Yeah.
in that sense, and I do that. You know, I'm like that cop.
When I
Probably
first
couldn't.
started policing, you know, you wear your uniform, everything's got to be squared away. You got to have your gig line right. You got to you got to look good. And I'm not saying you got to look good because you want people to say, "Oh, he looks good." You want people to have that image that you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, and I used to look at guys, and we had all these different pins that you get if you went through this training or this training or this training, and especially once you know, when we've completed SWAT schools and stuff like that, you get your SWAT pins and all that. And I'd see guys with, you know, pins this thick, you know, coming on their uniform. And I looked at one day, I'm like, man, that's going to get ripped off. Why do you wear that? He says, because people pay attention. And there was actually a guy that said this. He said, when I get out of the car, if I see all that, I look at that guy and I go, okay, he's squared away, he's tucked, he's pressed, he's in pretty decent shape.
Yeah.
And he looks at that, you know, the pins,
Yeah.
and he goes, all right, he's got a little bit of experience, a little bit of knowledge. I don't think I'm going to try this guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Versus the guy over here that has nothing.
Yeah.
Shirt's kind of hanging out a little
Right.
bit.
Well, that goes back to what we talked about with
He's
Pete.
a little bit overweight.
Yeah.
He's going to either run or fight.
Yeah.
Because he thinks he's going to be able to get over him.
Right. Right.
You know what's funny to me is a lot of agencies, they graduate their physical fitness standards by age.
Yeah.
You know, you got to graduate.
And
Whenever
the last fight you were in, did they sit there and ask
that's
how
what I
old you were?
said. You know, we whenever I did that at sheriff's office, we come up with something that was not physically impossible for everybody to do. I wasn't asking anybody to be to a Navy SEAL PT standard. Okay, I'm asking
Jump
you
in
to
that
be.
pool.
I'm just asking you to be in some sort of physical condition so that you can get out here and do your job, or you can defend one of your partners or the general public, a victim out here. So we set standards and said, okay, this is it. Like I said, you know, when's the last time, you know, you got a guy up on the car and, you know, guy turns around and say, oh, by the way, how old are you? Because depending on how old are you is
I'm
going
gonna
to
fight a
depend on
little bit
How I'm going to come.
resist
no.
or how
no,
fast
yeah,
I'm
they're
gonna
like, no,
run
I'm
or
going to give
whatever.
everything I got if I think I could take you.
So I don't think age, you know, age has anything to do
Just
with
to
it.
add this, you passed all those tests that you implemented, right?
Oh, I ran them with the
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, which actually
I think that's important, too.
Actually, I went out with you
Oh
know,
yeah, like that.
some
The
select
sheriff
individuals,
himself was doing it.
you know, and
Yeah.
we ran it before we ever presented it to the agency, you know,
Right, to
everything.
see what
And
it would take.
And then when the agency, you know, when everybody went out and do it, you know, I went out with them and done it too. It was important, you know, hey, there was a bunch of people moaning and groaning, son. Some of them were my command staff too. They were moaning and groaning.
Yeah.
I sit behind a
You
desk.
know?
Why have I got to do
You know,
this?
Yeah.
They didn't want to do it, you know.
But that's good on you for doing that. And that's, you know, them seeing you go out and do that is different than you just coming up with the plan and telling them, hey, do this.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think we probably need to close this episode out. We're getting kind of close on our time today. But main thing we do, make sure that you are physically fit to serve your God, to serve your family, to serve yourself, to serve a complete stranger
Yeah.
he was a big powerlifting
Yep.
coach. Guy was really brilliant on strength training. But like Mark Ripito said, strong people are harder to kill than weak people and more useful in general, which is true. Which is true.
That's good
Strong
stuff.
people
That
are
is
harder
true.
to kill. So
Yeah.
be strong.
Men out there, just go do something. Be physical. Don't let yourself get sedentary, and keep yourself in shape.
Yeah.
Exactly. So,
Good stuff, man.
all right, Eric, you want to close us out with a word of prayer today?
Absolutely. I don't want to take my hat off. I'm not going to. So. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day that you've given us. Thank you for the opportunity to have this platform so we can further your word and your will. We pray that those out there that hear us can hear the words that you give us. We pray that Jesus is seen in this show, and we pray that we have empowered and inspired some people, and that your glory would be seen in everything that we do. Please be with us today as we go into the day, and we love you, we praise you, and we thank you for everything. In the mighty name of Jesus, amen.
Amen.
Everybody out there, we love you, and keep listening.